warfare was people's warfare. So that will help if we focus on people and people's development, their education, their welfare, their well-being. People themselves will develop the country. Governments don't develop countries. People develop countries. And if you want, you look on you in Singapore, the Indians are now focusing on the people. We should, Guyana should change steps or pause and genuinely look towards the development of their people. Recent results of the nurses examination, surely one should pause and think whether all the resources that are being used or being told is being used, that they are really being used in the right way, and spend time ensuring that the resources of the country are used in the right way for the development of people, especially young people. This is an age for young people. The technological age, they're adapted, they're born that way almost. Spend some time developing them. And so the way the Chinese treated their people, the way they approached the development of people, with the resources that they had at the time, I would say is something we could emulate.
Sandra asked, do you believe the GDF is ready for a woman chief of staff?
Sandra, the world is forced to accept that reality, that women will enter doors that were previously closed. And Guyana is but a speck in the world environment. Ready for women's chief staff, of course. Guyana is ready for women doing anything. And so that will be my answer. Tell your cousin Sandwich, keep focus, have faith in God and believe in herself, and she will be the chief one day.
Andy Worrell said, very interesting conversation. See you soon, Ed. And Cheryl B said, question for Brigadier General retired Edward O. Collins. Would you ever run for a senior political office in Guyana? If no, why? If yes, what would your platform be?
Well, it's not one of my considerations now. When after I demitted office, I recognized that in my quest for my own career development, you should know my wife, Marlene, she was in the scientific field, a government analyst, director of food and drugs. We both strove supporting each other to reach the top of our career, which we did. Not recognizing that in the process, our children and their career had to be not sacrificed, had to be curtailed. We could not spend the time a father and mother ought to spend as a family with their children because of our own career development. So now we're focusing towards our kids. Spend time, they're now making baby steps on their path. And so we refocus. And it's not my situation. Most military officers would have had to make that sort of sacrifice. It's not a willing sacrifice. It happens. Your children, your family suffer sometimes. And so at this point in time, I am focusing, I'm giving back to my family what I did not give to them. I'm not giving to the society. I spent a lot of time giving to society during the time I was there. So if I'm to run for political office, that would have to come from the bottom. It's not one of my considerations right now. It's not one of my it's not the way I'm thinking right now. But I'm not saying that if I'm requested by the people to take office, to run, that I would not give it consideration. That calling would have to be, not be the internal calling that drove me in the military, as I said earlier. It would have to be calling from the people. And so at this time, there is no such consideration. So, in a simple answer, that's it. Cheryl B.
Okay. In your opinion, what do you believe best prepared you to assume command of the Guyana Defense Force at such a young age?
My training,
Mm-hmm.
I was being trained militarily. I had quite a lot of exposure. I think my command in Haiti of the United Nations force, CARICOM force in the United Nations, the United Nations mission in Haiti, where we had about 7 different countries. I think that command, that exposure for 6 months is the first time CARICOM had anybody, any force from CARICOM would have been involved in United Nations operations. And so it was a learning experience for me, but at the same time it helped. Because whereas in the Guyana Defense Force, I was not even the top, you're required to deal with one set of politicians that you could study their style and adapt. In Haiti, I had 7 different foreign affairs ministers to deal with because they had 7 countries contributing to the CARICOM force in Haiti. Whereas Nepal, for instance, for example, or India or Bangladesh, for example, or even the United States had one homogeneous unit. We did not. The CARICOM defense, the CARICOM force in Haiti had 7 different. We had contingents. I was a contingent commander. So quickly I had to learn to relate to the politicians back home because they were always um, demanding information of what is happening to their people in Haiti. And then you have to relate to the Haitian authorities. So that was an experience for me that I will always treasure. It's coming out in my memoirs anyway. I'm spending quite a lot of time with my memoirs, and so that one will come out. And it was
You,
a very rich
you know
experience.
that you mentioned Haiti. I'm glad you brought that up. I actually forgot your stint um, in Haiti as the head of the CARICOM forces. This is a question I have for you. I remember in a private conversation you saying to me you admire the people of Haiti. It is one of the few countries where the people have never been conquered, and Haiti transformed you. Can you share with us how did the people of Haiti, their culture, affect you?
I think it built me. When prior to going to Haiti, we were seeing flashed on the screen one part of Haiti. The different set of people, as you will recall. But Haiti, as you know, would have the haves and the have not. That's schism almost. And what struck me is the people of Haiti, ordinary people, were poor but proud. They were very proud people. Those that I met, everywhere I went, they had this pride in them, although they were poor. And it must register to most people, most visitors. How could the people so poor be so proud? Because we thought there was almost a contrast, but it's not. We can be poor but proud and live proudly and do not let things go down to below a certain level. And my interaction with the Haitians, that's what they were. They realized we were there to help them because there was this situation the military took executive action against the politicians and RST. Then RST just returned when we were there. And so the people were there. Things are not economically well for them, but they were very, very proud. And so I think that struck me and it lived with me and it has formed part of my ethos. It can be poor but proud.
Karen G said, good to hear the same issues facing us in the US, where children and family are yours, and happy to hear you can now pay attention. To that end, what do you see as some of the issues facing our kids?
Look, there was a study done in Region 2 recently, I understand, by some American university, why Region 2 was plagued with that level of suicide. And the study revealed that low self-esteem among kids,
Mm-hmm.
low self-esteem and lack of education. And I don't want to get involved in the allocation. Education is done annually. So where is that money going to? Kids in Region 2. And it's very instructive now it was Region 2. And so I would say most of our kids are facing low self-esteem. Something was catching on before I left last month. Young girls were fighting and going YouTube, going viral. You know, it's an infection that I've seen elsewhere, and they're part of the act. How does it happen? It happens because the other cultures are not are we cannot prevent it. It's an intrusion because of the media. Intrusions. Our kids are well informed nowadays. Now, if you should take the tools that are available for informing and educating our kids to channel it into in a positive direction for their development, will do wonders.
Hmm.
But our kids are now left on their own, almost striving for themselves for an education, and so the result is what we do have: low self-esteem. Not to mention those in the communities that feel that they're being discriminated against, and they feel that they're being discriminated against because it's clear. You don't have to go around on a platform to tell them that. They see it, they live it. They pass through from one community to the other. They see it, and so they feel that way, and therefore the effect is understandable. That's why kids go to school, they study hard. In my days, my mother said, "Go to school and get an education because that is your salvation." Of course, it was, but that was then different environment. The kids are going to school, make the sacrifice, study hard, and when they are completed, there's wow, they're disappointed. The reaction are manifested in different ways. And I think our kids are behaving this way because our education system is broken. And we need to fix it. And we can only fix it if we, we have a vision. And as I was stressing earlier, my visit to China caused me to believe in people's development. I must have a vision for people's development. And people's development starts from the school, from our young people. If 60% of your population is young people, then it's not rocket science to know that you have to invest in them now, in their education, because you've been a rocking chair when they become leaders, helpless and victims of what that lack of education will do to you. You could do nothing. So now is the time, not tomorrow. Now is the time to fix it. Now is the time to look at our young people. Now is the time to look at our people, bring them together. Look, Mashramani, everybody was on the road reveling. Why can we not convert that into everyday allocation of resources that our people want to be together, our people desire, our people love for the country transcends race, transcends the political divide. Why can we not have a leader who will stand up now and say, this is the direction we're going? We are really one people with one destiny. If we believe in that, then things will be better. Our kids will have a better education. The respect for adults will be there, and so on and so forth. I'm not the one who will say in back in the day. Back in the day what? Back in the day we don't have television. Back in the day we don't have the proliferation of television as we have now. Back in the day we don't have Facebook. Back in the day we could not do what we're doing here now. So I would not be saying back in the day. I'm saying now is the day. Take what are available to us for communication. Take what are available to us for every aspect of development and use it to the benefits of our people.
Karen said, asked again, do you think we need really good mentorship program or exchange programs to help the kids? That is mind maps where we bring some of our experienced and qualified people to talk to them and have contact.
Yeah, Karen it's a good, it's an excellent idea. We should do that because, as I said before, and Selwyn, I think this is a powerful tool you have here. If you should take this, the amount of people that came for this conversation with you who can be role models, if this can be now disseminated into the various communities, I don't know, I'm not suggesting, but I just have an idea that I'm sharing, but if it could be disseminated into into our various communities, I think there'll be a change in that. Or churches can play a role. Long ago, Bill Clinton said it takes a village to raise a child. Well, the village we're talking about then was a village that had three pillars: the school, the family, and the church. Now, the family is one person. The school, the kids are fighting. Children are teaching children. So the whole structure of the school is broken. It's now the church. And that also needs to be carefully looked at. And so our communities are now left. What do? We have to find new paradigms to ensure that the village, we got to go back to the village, return to the village. This is a small unit, and have our villagers respecting themselves first of all. And they can only do that by looking at role models. But what happened to us? The villagers, as soon as you reach a certain level, there is no job in the village. You have to leave the village. Our village boys, the good leaders, join the army, and once you join the army, you become national in your outlook. You're not any longer community. You go to for civil service jobs, you become national. Police, national. If you check what is happening to our villages, always drain the people who should really remain there to develop. So maybe we will have to develop a concept or a paradigm of return. And it should not be a pull factor pulling you back to the village. It should be a push factor. Something should push us back to spend some time with those that left behind. And I think Karen is right. We can return Easter, August, those of us who are in the diaspora, and go to it's happening in some villages. Linden is happening, Buxton is happening, Victoria is happening. We need to have that multiplied.
Cheryl B asked, what changes do you see coming to Guyana, taking into consideration the political realities of today, and what is required to bring about those changes?
Well, nothing is stuck in stone. The only constant there is change. There will be changes. For me to sit down and try to articulate and what changes will come, I would be presumptuous of me. But I am confident that there will be changes because, by now you're aware, I believe there's a God, and I know over time when people felt that there would be no change. Nelson Mandela was locked away for 28 years. You thought that was it. Mm-hmm. And it turned out to be different. So there will be changes. I'll say, don't give up. Have hope. Once you have life, have hope. Dream, and dream big too, and work towards it. Your dream.
What is the hardest decision you've ever made personally and as chief of staff?
The hardest decision I have made personally is when my first decision, when I joined the Guyana Defense Force against my mother's wish. Mm-hmm. That is the hardest I have made, and I worked after then to convince that I was doing the right thing, and it turned out to be the outcome turned out to be a very glorious outcome for all of us. So I will keep it at that decision as a person.
And as a chief of staff?
What decision I have made? The hardest decision I would have made as a chief of staff is my last decision. My first decision, look at it, what a coincidence. My first decision and my last decision was not to attend the ceremony, not to accept the ceremony of the dining, of the changeover ceremony, because I felt very, very, I felt annoyed about how the transition was done. And so when the time came for me to do the changeover parade, I said, no, I will forego that ceremony. And I think that's the hardest as a chief when I was leaving.
This is a quote by Dr. Martin Luther King. We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. What is your hope for Guyana?
My hope for Guyana is that we become one people.
One people.
That's my hope. My hope for Guyana is somebody will stand up one day. God will stand up somebody one day to bring our people together. That is our problem. Our problem in Guyana, everything is set in politics, political situation. And if we can have that situation change and become one people, we have far way to go. The resources that we're hearing about, selling, they're still there, still under the ground. God bless us with resources. No natural disaster is a blessing all the way below sea level. Vast amount of resources. A very fertile soil with 3/4 million people, it's 3,000 square miles. You know what we can do as a people if our decisions, political decisions, are different. Our people come together. It is happening right now. The young people are showing, there's the relationship. One, there's signs that it will happen. The
Uh,
interracial relationship, and once we could cross that bound, that racial situation, I think Guyana will be a gem.
Karen G said, all across the US, we are having an issue with education and jobs. It's quite frustrating. Your thoughts on entrepreneurship in a legit way and pushing creativity, marketing it, and trading it properly.
Entrepreneurship is indeed the way to go. Our historical conditioning as a back home, especially in the villages, we frowned on it, but thereafter we became entrepreneurs, at a very local and ordinary way first, trading, and that grew. And then we have people who have the skills to make money. We have to make money. Entrepreneurship is about wealth. It's about taking something and maximizing its potential and maximizing its profits. That's the way to do. You make money and money will go around. Governments don't make money, the people do.
Mhm. And Ali said, profound statement just now about matrimony. Perfect tool for mobilizing the masses beyond the sporting and revelry. Excellent point there. Run for office, sir. And Karen G, laugh out loud, dream big and in color is my motto. Of all the awards and commendations you've had, of which are you most proud? If that's a fair question, and why?
Being inducted in the Hall of Fame in the US and the Hall of Honor, two halls, because that will remain forever.
Mhm.
My great 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 grandson will come and see it there. And that I think is my crown glory, and why I'm proud of that. It happened after I was retired,
Hmm.
and so what attended to the relationship I had with the civil authorities when I retired certainly was not extended to others who had seen me in their schools, and so my achievement was not forgotten, and therefore I found it very very beneficial, and I was glad that it happened. So the whole of in the first for Guyana. So even though my narrative will be written by, or there'll be attempts to write my narrative in a particular way, it will be defied by the fact that this is there. And that's one thing, as a person, don't let anybody try to write your narrative. Don't be lazy about it. You write your narrative yourself.
Hmm.
I mean, write your narrative in every figuratively and literally. Prepare your narrative and have it written yourself. So being inducted in the Hall of Fame, International Hall of Fame in Leavenworth, very prestigious military college, and the Hall of Honor in Washington within the same month, 2 weeks. I think that has been the common glory.
Let me just for the record just read this a little bit. On April 3rd, 2008, you were the first Guyanese to be inducted in the International Officers Hall of Fame at the Command and General Staff College. And the following week, on April 9th, again the first Guyanese, but also the first in the English-speaking Caribbean to be inducted into the Hall of Honor at the Inter-American Defense College. But let me ask you a question on that. What did this mean to you, and how did it contribute to your narrative? You spoke of narrative just now, that anything is possible with belief, prayer, and hard work.
Well, when I was invited by the state of the United States to attend to this ceremony, and then I had to walk to be accompanied by my wife, who never accompanied me on any course because she was also in pursuit of her own development. It was not possible for her to attend courses with me. And I thought that having my wife with me during these times, after I left there, in an environment that was not friendly um, in the country, because of how the politicians decided to treat with the issue of the transition. I I was more than elated, and I came, and the first thing after I attended that um, both ceremonies, I came to here to my mom right here at a celebration with my siblings and my friends, and I went to New York and met with the XGDF Association, and they had a ball for me, and so those things helped me to feel good about myself, irrespective of what others think of you. And I decided there and then I'm going to leave my award, which was a token eagle that everybody who is inducted there will be given. I leave it to the XGDF Association in New York. It's always there. Um, Even the next chief of staff is inducted, maybe I'll ask him to have mine replaced and return it to the museum in the GDF. So that, to my mind, was very, very telling for me. It was very, very. I looked at my wife in the audience there. She's been acknowledged by the MC, and I see the beam in her eyes and the smile in her face, and she says, "Well done, my husband." She's saying to herself, and that made me feel good. Nothing like putting a smile on the face of your wife and your kids.
um, how much of your decisions um, was based on intuition and following your strong sense of spirituality, and how much was on just pure training and experience?
Well, the first thing is most initially it's always your intuition and your on spirituality, and the training and experience will come to bear afterwards. Or if you're forced into a situation where it is just required for training and experience to make that decision, thereafter, as the decision is being implemented, it is your intuition, your spirituality that help you along. I could remember when I was the second in command in the Guyana Defense Force, the situation in Buxton flared up, where the people decided that they will defend their village against excesses or abuses by the authorities. The situation in Buxton began when a man named Shaka Blair was killed in the presence of his common law wife by the police, and the villagers became enraged, and so they decided that they will defend the village, and they started digging up the road. As they started digging up the roads, then we had a situation, the police were not going into Buxton. And the Guyana Defense Force, the Defense Board asked the Guyana Defense Force to go into the village with our engineers to help to patch the road to allow that corridor to be used. And so the Guyana Defense Force was deployed because they had the skill. They deployed with spades and tools, almost civilian tools to patch the village. And the villagers were not antagonistic towards the engineers. They were patching the road. And as the situation escalated, then is when the other robust arm of the military went there to secure and support the engineering activity. And then we realized it was only the military. The only semblance of government authority in the village was the military. The police weren't going there yet. And so the GDF stayed in a situation that we call in the military creeping mission, from one mission to the other. And that, to my mind, was a situation that will always remain moving from one situation, a civil situation of engineers, to situation military, and then you became blamed. You were blamed for things that are happening that are purely of police matters.
I want to twist this gem a little bit more, and only because, well, I think what inspired it is because you mentioned your position, your annoyance at the way the transition was handled from your tenure to the next. And if I may, bring the bring I want to bring to the attention of the audience the discipline, the sense of discipline that you have, the sense of love, the sense of compassion that you have, the sense of honor, that in spite of the position you took, you were still available. And these aren't my words. It was made, it was said live here, right on this show, by your successor, um, Commodore,
Rear Admiral.
Rear Admiral, retired Gary Best, that you were always available with advice. He could always call on you whenever there's a situation that he needs some kind of a opinion or advice on. And that to me speaks volume to the mettle of men that the armed services produce, but more importantly, to the kind of character that you have, that you are. And so I just wanted to twist the gem to give a glimpse of that facet of you. That in spite of your position, you did not let that color or jaundice your relationship as a military man. And for that, my brother, congratulations. And I'm
Thank you very much.
proud of you on that. I want to just a few more questions. It's been a long night, but I'm enjoying this, and this is just a glimpse of the kind of conversations we usually have anyway. When you think back on the long arc of your military career, what are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of the education of the officer corps. That's, I will say, because I helped to facilitate that. When after '92 there was a change in political administration, the military was there, seen by everyone well, not by everyone, but seen by a certain sector. As well, the military should have transformation, they should have change up, they should have this, and they should have that. And one realized that, this new administration will be very stingy in allocating the resources that we needed for its development in terms of equipment. As I said before, you don't have to have rocket science to know that. Immediately we decided, look, let's focus on the human development. Let's our officers go to school, go to universities and get an education, because that is easier. It's not much is required of the civil authorities in terms of allocation. All it's required is for you to go and burn the men like oil and a lot of brain power. Apply yourself. But we had to make the sacrifice because as officers go, there are vacancies, but we made that sacrifice. Mm-hmm. Sent our officers to school. It did two things. First, it made the officer confident of himself. That whether they get changed or knock off or whatever words they were using, or fired, I'm equipped to deal with the outside world. It allowed the officer to open up his mind to other thinking, to other models, to other analytical tools. When you leave the military, we grew up in the military, you almost one track in the way we were thinking. When you go there, you start interacting with other peers, pursuing an academic education, it changed the officer completely almost. He's better equipped, he feels confident, his shortcomings he recognizes and corrects it, and he comes back really qualified and feel very, very good about himself. And there's a third dimension to that. It gives value added to the officer corps. The officers were qualified for their positions. We were relating with the American military by then. In fact, the discovery for our master's degree program was when I came to Leavenworth. The first person to come and recognize that we were coming on a student's visa. I mean, I realized we were coming on a student's visa, and there were universities that were accredited, and our military colleagues were going to, were attending the universities part-time for their master's degree. I said, let me give it a shot. I did. And I went back home and I said, look, every officer going to University of Guyana, 3.0 GPA. Because it required then a 2.75 for you to do a 1-year master's when we were attending school. I said, once we get 3.0, everybody will be qualified to spend that 1 year, because if you don't get I mean, when else could you get a student visa to attend an American university? So the opportunity was provided for us. We really made use of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the development of the officer corps improved tremendously. As I said earlier, most of the officer corps would have had masters. All but 2 or 3 of the senior officers would have attended university. And the 3.0 did wonders. Officers were coming out as top students. Distinction was almost there. Certainly they were getting credits. So the quality of the officer corps developed, and so we said with the development of our officer corps, quality improved, and we'll attract down below a better quality officer. So take the time, take the pause that things are not coming your way, may not come, and develop for ourselves. And I think that is something I have no regrets. That's a legacy I will always treasure. When you look back at the officer corps and see how it's developed. Our senior NCOs were attending technical institutes. Some of them attended the University of Guyana and security courses. So there was not only because it was something that you facilitated, there was a love, a desire, passion developed among the officer corps. So every officer coming in there realize that I'm going to pursue my military education to a period, and then I'll go and get academic education. Something that we never thought of before. We thought that we just continue the military path. But now officers are thinking different. We have lawyers or female officers come in there, they go and do specialized courses. Lawyers, doctors, computers, because the female officers do not have the same opportunities to have external courses, military courses. So they go very early. They got a lieutenant, captain, and so they come back, they're all qualified, feel better, serve the Guyanese force better, look after the men, have more time to look after the men. And even this education program, this campaign, saw the officers supporting each other. Study groups, the library, bought books that were required by lecturers that you could not buy yourself. We made it reference books in the library that you could go there and study. So the whole environment, internal environment, was changed to deal with this reality. Educate yourself. That is why they're almost stable. Now officers being sent off. That's why. That's one of the reasons, I think.
If you could go back in time, what would you tell that 15-year-old boy?
15-year-old?
Yes. If you could go back in time, what would you tell him?
Go to school, get your CXC, grade 2s, and go to the Guyana Defense Force and make a contribution. I will tell him that, Selwyn.
I have just 2 more. Let me just read what Karen said in the chat room. Congratulations, proud Mr. Collins and Mrs. Collins. I can see Marlon blushing. And the question I always ask, well, before I ask that question, one more. When are you most happy?
In my life?
Yes.
Now?
When are you most happy?
When my girls are happy. Now I'm a house of girls. I'm the only man in the house.
Well said.
So when we're happy, I'm very happy. You know, on Sundays I prepare the soup.
Yes.
I do the soup. Then we go to church. And right now we have a Thursday night gathering with Marlene. Marlene has influenced me tremendously in maintaining what my mother said. There is two influences in my life. My mother started in the church, so I am there. So we have every Thursday night, because the girls are now back home, two of them, and so Thursday night we meet and we read something in the Bible and we discuss it. What jump out at you here, and get different views and try to relate it to life. I have the time to do that now, so I spend the time doing that. And we have a little granddaughter there. She's there. Sometimes she says the prayer, and that makes me feel good because I said, "My God, isn't this something else? Isn't it genetic?" It is, and so I'm very happy to see that. You know,
The question I ask all my guests, the last question of the evening: what makes you laugh out loud?
my mother. I just joke. So I came in the house yesterday. He said we're gonna fool them that. So I came to her house. I said, "Selvi," I said, "M," we call her M. Have you seen Oren yet? Suggesting to her, "I'm Selvi." She is not here. It's one thing I can't fool her with, and so that makes me laugh. Or I'll call her and said, "M, you mean the boy Oren not called you yet?" She can say, "So is who calling me now?" She said, "I gotta be something for you. Tell me everybody mix us up sometimes. It's our
Yes.
voices. Sometimes I think it's Selwyn, sometimes So I pull that prank on her. When she could bust that laugh, I say, "Oh God, it's very infectious laugh.
Yes.
It makes you laugh out loud."
Well, my brother, the show has come to an end, and I want to say thank you first. Thank you. This was indeed a pleasure, and I sincerely hope that you opening up, so candidly, have has helped to give people a more three-dimensional or multi-dimensional perspective of who you are, and I believe we have accomplished that tonight. But I'm extremely overjoyed that we had an opportunity to have this conversation live and share our dynamic with the world. And I can't thank you enough. You always talk about time, and timing is something I truly believe in. We were supposed to have this conversation last year. It couldn't happen. We were supposed to have it here in studio. It didn't happen. But I am happy that it happened the way it did, because again, I got a chance to share our mother with the world and our sisters with the world. And for that, thank you. Before I go, in the chat room, Cheryl B said, "Thank you, Mr. Edward O. Collins. Thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with Selwyn." Thank you, Cheryl.
Hi, Cheryl. See you back in GT. Thank you, Selwyn. You're welcome, and I hope that the time we spent in this conversation, sharing with the world, as you said, not one or at least one young person who was uncertain of his future because of the consideration we discussed, humble environment, that person will have a change of heart, have a change of mind, and start believing in him or herself, and having faith in God, and make that bold step to go forward. And if that happens, I'll be a very happy person.
So would I. Say hello, say good night to M for me, please.
You're welcome. Em, you want to say good night yourself?
M?
So we want to say good night. You have the time? She's coming.
Yes, I do. I always have time for M.
She can do some exercise to come to. Don't say good night to go there. Just Oren. Selwyn. It's Oren. You're fooling the girl. You're fooling the lady again. Say good night to Selwyn.
M?
So when I say good night, you gotta say good night to Selwyn here.
M, they're keeping you up late.
Good night.
Good night, M. They're keeping you up late.
They're keeping you up late.
I'm so happy you had this opportunity to talk with you and to share with the world some of the wonderment that you are. You're such a beautiful person. And of course, I will call you tomorrow as usual, and we'll have our own private conversation. Thanks again for being my mother.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good.
Oren?
Okay.
All right. Good night.
Mm-hmm.
Good night. Somebody just came in. Bonnie said, "Hi, guys.
Yeah.
Thoroughly enjoy the show. Eddie, call me."
All right. What is
That's,
his number?
um, well, he's not going to put it live. Bonnie,
No.
Facebook him.
Okay. I'll do that.
Right. All right.
Good
Good
night.
night.